to this podcast. It is the Plan It Your Way show where we turn business planning into a fun, jargon-free adventure. I am the owner of Clarity Group, LLC, and the goal of this podcast is to make business planning approachable and enjoyable. And don't worry, we're not here to bury you in buzzwords like synergy or scalability. This is a safe zone. By the end of this series, you'll have a business plan that makes sense, fits your style, and feels more like a roadmap than a homework assignment. What you can expect from this episode. Starting a business is not just a financial venture, it is a manifestation of your personal identity, creativity, and vision. So we'll start by that personal connection to your business. Then we'll talk about defining your brand identity, your business identity, the role that passion and purpose play in planning your business, how to best collaborate and connect with your community, and then some final tips for all of you aspiring entrepreneurs out there.
It's not personal, Sonny. It's strictly business.
A phrase made famous by Michael Corleone in the Godfather movies. Oh my, that is not the identity most of us want in our small businesses. And I know my first podcast went through the 8 crucial areas of a formal business plan, but this is my call to you to deformalize at this stage and make a personal connection to your business. When I was designing my first business, I was young and I didn't have the kind of foundational business knowledge that I do now. And you know what? I'm glad I didn't, because it allowed me to nearly over-personalize the business. I thought about things like wanting to design the building so I could paint murals on the walls in the future. I thought of an annual giveaway of a t-shirt where I would personally design the logo or have the team engaged in designing the logo. These were silly thoughts that actually became a foundational and value-driving concept in the business as the business progressed. And they were also things that once I eventually sold the business, the buyer liked, and it was part of the culture of the business. So definitely don't underplay your personal connection to your business. In fact, I would encourage you to walk around your home and call out the items that feel very personal and think about how you can convey that type of personality in your business. How can you break the mold? How can you get away from a cookie cutter look and have people walk in and go, yeah, this reflects the person that owns this business and I can tell they're proud of it. That will reflect in your reviews, whether you get positive reviews or negative reviews, which I can tell you are going to feel very personal when they begin to happen. Positive lights up your heart and you're so proud of what you've done. And a negative review can nearly keep you up at night because you wonder how in the world the customer could have experienced your business in that way. So take this moment, pause, get a journal, and write down the things that are personal to you and reflect your style. Let's talk now about how this translates into creating your business identity, or sometimes known as your brand identity. So, as a definition, a brand identity is the collection of visual and verbal elements that a company uses to portray a specific image to its target audience. I think that pretty clearly spells out that this needs to be a set of things that connect with you, as well as you believe would connect with your audience. And it's really helpful in these circumstances to put yourself in the shoes of your customer and walk through how you would like to experience getting exactly this same type of service. Remove all of your education and all of your technical knowledge of your business and just simply walk through your own imaginary front doors and imagine how you'd be greeted, what it looks like, what it feels like. Do you have a coffee machine? Are your seats cushioned, not cushioned? Are they benches? Is there music playing? Is there a TV in the lobby? How kid-friendly is it? Are there things at reachable levels? What type of client education material do you have there? This imaginary journey of creating your personal identity within the business is really important because guess what? You're going to walk through your own front doors quite a bit. And you're also going to get feedback on this identity that you've created, and you need to be somewhat flexible to understand that there's a customer's journey and there's your journey, and the personalization of that is where those two journeys intersect. So how does this relate to my own background? When I was designing a logo, and this is just my personal style, everybody has a personal style, I'm not one to really like a lot of things that are very traditional. I'm kind of an out-of-the-box person. I'm also that kind of person that has a really hard time following a recipe. I like to create my own little flair on things as I go. So I was thumbing through the yellow pages, and yes, it was that long ago, looking at different logos and different styles that people used, and I thought, why don't I just ask my rep which one is the most successful and most popular, because I was having a hard time really connecting with a particular style. And she takes me to a page for an electrician that has a hand-drawn stick figure of a little electrician climbing a telephone pole with the hand-drawn little wires and everything. And she said, this is it. This is the one that's the most successful. Probably the least formal looking dollar-sized ad in the yellow pages, but the most attractive. And I thought, yeah, that's it. Like, I'm atypical like this. So my first logo for this business was a little girl and a little boy. One was walking a dog and the other one had a little cat next to her. And it was all the wrong dimensions, and coincidentally, it was also really difficult to place on t-shirts and on logo gear. But I didn't really care. What I wanted and what I was going for was something super homegrown and super unique. And that's just my style. So as you go through this process, you need to pick things that are your style and that reflect your personal touch on things, and something that if somebody asks you the story behind its creation, that you might even share a little giggle of how you stumbled upon it or your creative process. And that in itself, being able to tell the story of your brand and how it got created, is a fun, engaging, and genuine thing that makes small businesses quite a bit different than big businesses. Now that we've gone on this journey through the eyes of the customer and through the eyes of yourself, walking in through the imaginary front doors of your business, let's connect that feeling to two words we very often hear in business, but are very often also completely underdefined: passion and purpose. Purpose is pretty straightforward and easy. The dictionary definition of purpose is the reason for which something is done or created or for which it exists. That's pretty straightforward, right? You know what your business is doing, you know why it's being created, and you know what it provides, why it exists in your community. Passion is a word thrown around a lot in business, but I don't think we live by the definition of that most of the time. The dictionary definition of passion is a strong and barely controllable emotion. Now that's a little different than you hear it thrown around in business, right? You need to be passionate about your work. Not uncommon for an employer to say that. I need you to be passionate about your vision and your relationships with your coworkers. But could you honestly say that in a typical environment, people have strong and barely controllable positive emotions, passion about what they're doing? So why is this important as you're designing your business? Purpose, that can be spelled out in the formality of a business plan and the logistics that relate to getting everything going and set up. Passion is defined by the many, many decisions you'll make, mostly in the creative realm, around your business and its identity. You're going to get a lot of feedback. There will be people along the process that tell you what paint color to choose, what chairs to choose, what your screensaver should look like on your computers, what your logo should look like. And stop for a moment every time you get that input, because what's important is that you're passionate about the choices that are being made, that you're not sort of okay with things or kind of okay with things, that you're passionate about it. that you have strong feelings about the choices you're making for your business. And guess what? Not everybody has to agree with you. That is probably the hardest part about designing a business, is filtering all of the feedback that you get and all of the expressions of what somebody else's passion might look like. But what's important is that you have your own dream board about what you'd like it to look like. So how do you start doing that? We already talked about going on the imaginary journey, but let's start building some passion around what seems like sort of mundane decisions. Get a corkboard, get a notebook, and start collecting the little paint samples that are at the building supply store. Start picking out little colors and cabinetry samples and flooring samples and things that you think go together. Go to the fabric store and pick out fabrics that kind of express the patterns and the feelings that you would like to have in your environment. Does that mean explicitly those are the items, colors, or things that you'll use when you actually build the whole vision? Not necessarily, but it is important that how it all comes together and the creative process is not rushed, and that there's a lot of you infused into the process, and that's how you keep your passion involved in the process. And don't be afraid to tell people when their input is appreciated, but not necessarily needed at this stage. Okay, so we've gone on a journey already. We've gone through our imaginary front doors and experienced things like a client would, so we know how it's going to look and feel. We also have connected our own passion and our own purpose to this business journey so that it's authentic and genuine and reflects you and what you're truly excited about. So let's bring that forward and talk about how you can utilize collaboration and a sense of community to keep moving forward and amplifying how you build this business concept. So as we've done with the other areas, let's start with some definitions of these words. Community is defined as a group of people living in the same place or having a particular characteristic in common. That can mean a lot of different things. For your customer, that is largely going to be geography based. It could also be their psychographics. What do they like? Where do they shop? What are they drawn towards? Or a particular demographic of age group, or people of a particular profession, or live in a certain type of house. So that's one sense of community from the marketing standpoint that is important to understand. A different sense of community as an entrepreneur are people that are like-minded and think like you or have been on a similar design journey. That is vital to your process in designing your business. Join a chamber of commerce, a social media group, whatever your comfort level is, whether that's digital or in person, to get around like minds. Because as I've mentioned a few times now, you're going to get a lot of feedback during this journey. And you want to make sure that you're balancing that feedback to hear it from people that are naturally entrepreneurial and people that are not. Because the people that are not might actually be your customer. So you do need to listen to both. And that brings us to the collaboration piece, which is the action of working with someone to produce or create something. This sense of community and getting to know the community that will either use your business as a customer, or the sense of community that has opened a business or has in the same industry as you, that's going to offer up opportunities to collaborate on information to come to more successful outcomes and get to places quicker. Like, for example, I write business plans, right? So I have a very objective view on the formality of the structure of setting up a business. But I'm also one of those creative thinkers that's been an entrepreneur myself. So I love to get lost in the passion side of things and talk about the colors and the feel and the experience that people want to create within their business. I love building dream boards. You need to collaborate with people that connect with you in the way that you need to be connected with along your journey. I'm also going to encourage you to collaborate with a few people that are overtly naysayers. I know that sounds counterintuitive or maybe even counterproductive, but you need the people in your life that will talk you out of this idea. That type of critical thinking will incite the right kind of debate in your own mind, and that debate is where a lot of good problem solving happens. So don't just err towards the side of confirmation bias and surround your people that are going to say, yes, your idea is fantastic all of the time. Balance that out with the people that have a little cynicism or possibly say, oh gosh, how does that even work? Or I'm not sure, we need another one of those. Because they're going to cause you to do a little bit more research, and they're going to have you dig into your community to find out, like, what does the customer actually need here? We've walked through a few really key areas to personalizing this business. Make it yours, make it personal. It's not just business. So now let me give you some practical tips to keep your aspiring entrepreneurial mind growing and seeking more as you go through this process. First, conduct a self-assessment and identify your core values. And there's lots of technology you can utilize out there to find words that define who you are. I think this is a great use of AI, is to feed it your personality, your style, maybe some favorite colors, maybe some different random words that you've liked from different companies you've worked for, and let it help you with a set of words that potentially and possibly define who you are as a person and as a business person. From that list, you're going to want to narrow it down to 3 that actually sound genuine to you, things that you would use in a sentence, words that would sound natural coming out of your mouth. But more importantly than that, and this is the key to building a business culture, you should not have to post these words on the wall for people to feel them. When people come to your culture, whether that's employees or customers, there should be a feeling in the environment that conveys the sentiment of these words, these core values. So decorporatize it completely. This is not about posting it on a wall and forcing people to live by it. This is about living these words in real life to create a culture within a small business that is genuine and led by you personally. The second thing that I'd like you to do is work on your mission statement. This is a 1-sentence statement and not one of those run-on sentences, but more like a concise what, how, where, who. Very simple, should be memorable, repeatable, probably highly related to any slogan you have for your business, draws in your brand identity, and is something that your staff members can remember easily. This is something that you should have posted, whether that's in a break room or client-facing, whatever makes you the most comfortable, but it should be short and concise and clear. The third thing that I'd like you to do is engage with the community to build a brand that resonates. So we talked about this in the community and collaboration section, but I'd like you to put some action behind this. Go find the community. You're going to find the community of entrepreneurs that have that like-minded spirit so that you have people to talk to that are thinking and feeling like you are. And you're also going to find your customers' community. Where do they hang out? What other types of businesses do they visit? And you go shop at those businesses. See what your customers are drawn to and let that help you build the experience and then tie that into your personal identity as a business owner. Those 3 things will really help you get a handle on your own personal entrepreneurial experience, and it will help deformalize a lot of this process and really bring it back to its roots. And the roots are you opening a business that both serves you and your community. All right, we've come to the end of the journey of this particular podcast. So what did we go over today? First, we went over the personal connection to the business because after all, it is not just business, it is personal. Second, we talked about defining your business identity, also referred to as your brand identity. We talked about the role of passion and purpose within your business planning, how to collaborate with your community, and topped it off with some practical tips to help you be an aspiring entrepreneur. Create those core values, that mission statement, and connect with your community. So what's next? Well, first and foremost, please like and subscribe to this podcast so you can keep learning more about how to successfully plan your small business. And I want to thank you for being here, and please reach out. Visit me on my website at smallbusiness-dreams.com. I've got all sorts of tools and resources there to help you along your journey. And if you'd like to, go ahead and shoot me an email while you're there, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.